Hello, friends, and welcome to Lesson 3, A Clever General from our CKLA Domain 12, Presidents and United States Symbols. In our previous domains, we had learned that the Pilgrims chose to leave England to go to America. On the count of 3, please tell me why the Pilgrims wanted to come to America. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely. The Pilgrims wanted to go to their own church, but the King of England had said they had to worship in the Church of England. So the Pilgrims decided to leave to be happier and have the freedom to choose how they worshiped. Pilgrims were one of many groups of people to set up colonies in North America. These colonies became the United States of America, a new nation. Remember in our previous read-alouds that we learned that George Washington fought against the army of the King of Great Britain and won freedom from the king for the colonists. While doing this, we had our founding fathers. Did the founding fathers make George Washington king of the United States? Thumbs up if they did, thumbs down if they didn't. You are absolutely right, thumbs down. Here's another question for you. Is the United States of America a kingdom ruled by a king? Thumbs up or thumbs down? There is no tricking you today. Thumbs down. The form of government in the United States of America is a republic, but we have also a democracy. Say the word democracy. 1, 2, 3. Democracy. Unlike a kingdom that is ruled by a king, a democracy is a form of government ruled by the people. That means the president would have to be elected by the people. The founding fathers wrote the Constitution, a set of rules for the government to follow, so the president couldn't become like a king. Here's another check, thumbs up or thumbs down. Does the president work alone to make all the laws or rules and make sure that they're followed? Spot on, thumbs down. Here's another one. Is there more than one part of government? You are doing an excellent job remembering there are 3 parts. Good, thumbs up. The founding fathers made sure that all 3 parts of government, the president, the Congress, and the Supreme Court, would have important jobs to play, so the president wouldn't have all the powers like a king, and so the people would have liberties, which are freedoms, that would be protected. In this read aloud, we're going to hear about General George Washington and a man named Henry Knox, who worked under General George Washington. I want you to listen very carefully to find out how Washington and Knox tricked the British Army. Henry Knox is a very clever man. Clever is another word for smart. Before the American Revolution began, he and his wife had owned a bookshop in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. The American Revolution was when people fought to start a new government. Henry Knox had loved the quiet, peaceful life of a bookseller, but all that was in the past now. Henry Knox, bookseller, had become Colonel Henry Knox of the American Continental Army. He worked directly with General George Washington, another clever man who commanded the army, and the two had become great friends. Colonel and General are titles given to leaders in the army. A colonel answers to the general because the general is in charge. At the Continental Camp just outside the city of Boston, Henry Knox had a puzzled look on his face, which means he was unsure of how to solve a problem. Looking at General Washington, he said, "But sir, how can we keep the larger British army from marching out from Boston and destroying our soldiers here? We don't even have enough bullets or gunpowder for all of our soldiers. If only the British knew." George Washington answered him, "Yes, Colonel, if they only knew. But they do not know. The British think we have more men than we really do. They do not know how many of those men we have and the lack of anything we have to shoot with them, as you mentioned. So even though the Continental soldiers had guns, they didn't have any gunpowder or bullets left. So we must find out what they do not know. Let them think that we are stronger than we are, so that we will wish to stay comfortably in Boston through this long, cold winter. At least then we'll be ready for them. But in order for us to get ready, we're going to need more gunpowder and bullets." Colonel Knox thought for a few moments and then smiled. "General," he asked, "would 50 cannons and the cannonballs and the gunpowder to use with them help?" Washington looked startled or surprised. "Where could we get—" He stopped. A light of understanding shone in his eyes. "Fort Ticonderoga," he explained. "A fort is a protected building or small town set up by an army during war." "Brilliant, Colonel! Now that we have captured, or taken control of, Fort Ticonderoga from the British, we have captured their cannons too. You are to gather a team of carefully chosen men. In the morning you'll leave to bring those cannons here. Travel as quickly as you can." So at this point, the Americans had captured one of the British forts, and now they were going to get their cannons too. Was this a clever idea? Then George Washington said, "Meanwhile, my job here will be to convince the British general, General Howe, that we are too strong for him to attack." Washington knew his small army could not win against General Howe's larger army, so he had to find a way to be clever and convince General Howe that Washington's army was much larger than it really was. "I will order our men to build high mounds or huge piles of dirt in front of our camp. General Howe will not be able to see past the dirt. Then I will march our men up and down at either end. He will not know that we are moving the same men from place to place. Instead, he will think we have more soldiers than we really do. By putting up the dirt mounds, we will also be a period to setting down for a long time. General Howe will think, those colonial soldiers are expecting to keep us trapped here in Boston. They are certainly sure of themselves. He may think that it'd be better to leave Boston on board his ships rather than stay. If we can force the British to leave, we will then be in charge of the harbor again. Remember, a harbor is a protected body of water where ships can easily dock. Then, unlike the British, we can bring in supplies from other American cities on the coast, so the ships can sail along the coast where the land meets the ocean. We will move supplies to our armies all across the countryside because our friends will help us there. The supplies would include anything the army might need, such as food, water, or guns. Washington went over the idea in his mind. "It might work," he said. "It must work." It did work. Colonel Knox and his men marched off through the cold New England winter and returned in less than 2 months with cannons and supplies. If you look at the map, you can see how far they traveled. They had loaded these things onto carts and used heavy animals called oxen to pull the carts back to Washington's camp outside of Boston. Tune in next time, my friends, for part 2 to find out what happened with our clever men.